The Fantastic Four: First Steps is a superhero movie based on the Marvel Comics superhero team, the Fantastic Four. The movie is produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. It is the 37th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the second reboot of the Fantastic Four film series, and is the first in Phase 6 of the MCU. The movie is directed by Matt Shakman of TV's Monarch Legacy of Monsters fame, written by Jeff Kaplan and Ian Springer of The Last of the Great Romantics fame. Josh Frieden of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes fame rewrote the script, and Eric Pearson of Thor Ragnarok fame polished it. We're back in an alternate retro-futuristic 1964, where we learned that 4 years prior, astronauts Reed Richards, played by Pedro Pascal of Gladiator 2 fame, Sue Storm, played by Vanessa Kirby of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning fame, Ben Grimm, played by Ebon Moss-Bachrach of The Beast fame, and Johnny Storm, played by Joseph Quinn of Gladiator 2 fame, embarked on a mission into outer space and came back as celebrity superheroes. At a family dinner, Reed and Sue announced that they are expecting, when the Silver Surfer, played by Julia Garner of TV's Ozark fame, arrives to announce that Earth has been marked for destruction by a planet-devouring cosmic being known as Galactus, played by Ralph Ineson of Nosferatu fame, where wackiness ensues. After the failure of 2015's Fantastic Four, 20th Century Fox worked for another entry before the studio was acquired by Disney. The movie was shot in Pinewood Studios in England and on location in England and Spain. The movie premiered at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion and received generally positive reviews from critics who praised the 1960s setting, the chemistry between the main cast, and the decision to forgo the team's origin story. The movie has gained a Rotten Tomatoes rating of 87%, with the critical consensus stating, benefiting from rock-solid cast chemistry and clad in appealingly retro 1960s design, this crack at the Fantastic Four does Marvel's first family justice. Polled audiences gave the movie an A-. The movie has made a worldwide box office total of $218 million off of a budget of $200 million. A sequel is in development. So Tim, what did you think of The Fantastic Four: First Steps?
It wasn't too shabby, Luke.
And that's all you can really say these days, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was watching this consciously or unconsciously comparing it to Superman.
Yeah, definitely.
Because those were the big comic juggernauts coming out in the same month. And it was interesting, wasn't it? Because both forgoed their origin story, but dealt with it in different ways, and just differences in pacing as well. So how did you go with this one compared to what we said about Superman?
I actually quite enjoyed this a bit more than Superman. I found that they tried to tackle a superhero story that we haven't seen before, as far as Sue and Reed having a baby and juggling that sort of family dynamic with saving the world from this cosmic entity.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you say we haven't seen this before. We have in The Incredibles and The Incredibles 2. Basically the best Fantastic Four movie, but also we've dealt with the same plot in the Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer 20 years ago, Tim, with Jessica Alba and everybody else. I watched that again before I saw this movie, and it is the same movie, but just done better.
Yeah. When I said we haven't seen it before, I did just mean through the Marvel DC churning of superhero films that we've had these last 20 years.
Yeah.
But you are right. Incredibles is the best Fantastic Four movie that we've ever had. And I don't think we'll ever have a better Fantastic Four movie than that. I do just want to remind your audience, Luke, on your sister podcast, Shooting the Shot, some 5 years ago, maybe further, we were talking about the previous Fantastic Four films, and I did say the way to make Fantastic Four work is to set them in the 50s or 60s in the nuclear family era.
Tick.
Because being created back then, when you think about it, they are very goofy characters. What I suggested in that podcast many a moon ago was to set it in the 60s and then somehow bring them to the modern day, which seems to be what they're going to be doing. So Marvel, I'll wait for that check to come in the mail. But yeah, I think it really was the strength of this film was not trying to shoehorn them immediately into the MCU, not trying to bring in the modern, grim but family friendly at the same time that we've been getting from Marvel Universe lately, being its own entity and not having to be tied into too much to the MCU, I think was one of its real strengths.
The Fantastic Four is pretty much the first family of superheroes in the Marvel comic books. But obviously, this whole era of Marvel movies started with whatever Marvel had the rights to. And so instead of starting with the Fantastic Four or Spider-Man, they started, like we've talked about before, with their bottom of the barrel stuff that they had left over. And, they struck a gold with the casting of Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, and it hasn't really slowed down since. But having a Fantastic Four movie in the 90s, in the 2010s, in 2015, where they did go dark, and that obviously didn't work well, what are you going to do? You can't make it goofy again because they've already done that in the 2010s. They've gone back to something a little bit more earnest, a little bit optimistic, a bit like Star Trek. And you're right, setting it in a retro-futuristic 60s setting, which is great when you think about it because a family of celebrity astronauts who come back with superpowers are going to affect the lives and livelihoods of everyone around them. Like, they're going to kickstart a scientific evolution of mankind. So, of course, we're going to have flying police cars and all sorts of stuff because they're scientists at heart. They're all about hopeful discovery and sharing of all this knowledge and technology. So, of course, the society around them is going to step up because they're in it, as opposed to Spider-Man, who's street level, Daredevil, who works in the shadows, Batman, and all that type of thing. And again, audiences are getting tired of these origin movies because they're all the same. They're all from the hero's journey. They're the first act. So why not do away with it? Here, it's, again, done very smartly through the use of talk show radios and TV shows, just giving a quick exposition of what's come before, introducing everything. And I was happy to have all that. I wasn't all that conscious about, let's plot our way through this and get to our story. That was the story, because that was the world. It was world building.
I couldn't agree more. The world has been very vocal about getting the same superhero movie 3 times a year, and this film was all Act 2, which I thought was maybe not one of its strengths in that it didn't feel like it really had a full character arc for anyone. It was very much the second part of a trilogy where it's business as usual. There's things they need to deal with. They've got to deal with some giant a-hole from space who wants to eat the planet. So the characters were very much, although the stakes were high in their element, every one of them were fun to watch do their thing. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that they were flat and they had no character at all. There was just no real character arc for any of our main heroes.
Yeah, because we didn't see where they came from. We didn't see them grappling with what happened to them, because usually Ben Grimm, the Thing, is tortured. He's angsty. He's not happy being the Thing, especially being called the Thing. But here, he's in the kitchen making sauce with a little robot. He seems fine. And everybody seems to have gotten over that. Batman never has. Daredevil struggles with his Christianity. Spider-Man doesn't shut up about anything, And here we have a family of adults, and that's probably their strength. They've got each other and they carry on. But you're right, it's a bit odd to see that, personally speaking, they're set characters and then they go up against something that can't really be beat in terms of stakes. You've got Galactus, who eats planets for breakfast, and it's going for the youngest of the Fantastic Four. Not to spoil anything, but if you defeat him, what's next? I guess what's next is Doctor Doom in Doomsday and all that type of thing. But what are antagonists to go up against in your first outing, fifth outing? How are you going to count it? And again, we've dealt with this 20 years ago, basically beat for beat. Interestingly, though, completely different tones. So I watched the second and the best of the 2010s Fantastic Four really recently, and I was thinking, how can you beat your boy, Doug Jones, physically being the Silver Surfer, with Morpheus' voice, Larry Fishburne? And then, back then, Galactus was shown as a big cloud, but for those fans out there was a shadow of his helmet. And so, for those who wanted it, they could assume beyond the cloud was Galactus of old, but here we focused on whatever that cloud might be, chomping away at planets. Here, we get a pretty comic accurate Galactus. They're looking fantastic. I thought that was CG. They actually had the actor in the suit.
Yeah, right.
I think with CG polishes, because it looked a little bit CG, to be honest. Not bad. But then we've got a female Silver Surfer. Is that a gender flip of the Silver Surfer we know and love? Or is this a whole new character that comes from the comic books?
Luke, I'm glad you asked. I was very interested as to why they chose this version of Silver Surfer as well. This is Shalla-Bell from the Earth X universe of Marvel. Now, Earth X is basically, there's so many alternate universes, it's sometimes hard to even explain which is which, but Earth X in the comic books was a limited series that Alex Ross did the art for.
Oh, right.
Okay, so it was beautiful. The covers were beautiful. But it was about an alternate universe 50 years in the future. Captain America was an old Bruce Willis-like guy draped in a American flag. He was homeless and whatnot. So there was all these sort of different incarnations of the characters. Wolverine and Spider-Man are old and fat like me, which gives me hope. But in the Earth X universe, the original Silver Surfer, Norrin Radd, is actually teamed up with his mortal girlfriend, Shalla-Bell, who has also been turned into a Silver Surfer. So in this universe, there is the female and the male Silver Surfer traveling the galaxy together.
Yeah, right.
And this is the one that they've picked for this film instead of Norrin Radd, the Silver Surfer we know from Doug Jones and Larry Fishburne.
Obviously, you want to do new things. Why not have a female Silver Surfer, especially if it comes from the comics as well? We've had a fantastic one in the original Fantastic Four movies, so why not?
I think it was a good choice this time because it added to Johnny Storm's story with his I love space, I love women. It really added another level to the story, I thought, to have the female Silver Surfer for Johnny Storm to actually take center stage in what he gets obsessed with throughout the film.
Yeah, because in the 2010s Rise of the Silver Surfer, it was Sue Storm having a friendship with the Silver Surfer. Here it's flipped over. And it gives Johnny a bit more to do because with the Chris Evans ones, he was really a jokey character. He was almost like the comedic relief. Here, he's given a little bit more to chew on. It shows his brains a little bit more, and he's not that much of a girl-obsessed jock. And again, it's out there still if you want to see those original ones. This is just a new take. I found this to be like a really strong movie, but with the edges sort of round out a bit. So I actually really did like the original Fantastic Four movies.
Yep.
I mean, at the time, they were really criticized for being so goofy. And I thought, what could you do with the Fantastic Four? To me, they've always been goofy. Elastoman, Invisigirl, Flame Boy, and the Hulk, not Hulk. So then they went darker. They tried to do a Cronenberg body horror in 2015. Obviously, that was the wrong take. Here, it's a little bit more mature, a little bit more measured, optimistic sci-fi, beautiful looking production designs, but I like them when they had a bit more of an edge or a little bit more of a personality. But like Superman, like we said before, this is a solid step in the right direction.
Yeah. And I also really enjoyed the aspect of them being a nuclear family. And don't get me wrong, because I do love, all superheroes have their stakes of friends and family and whatnot, but it's very rare that we see a superhero who's a father or a mother. There's always uncles. There's always someone who's someone's uncle.
Yep.
But having that just extra, and I say that's what makes it feel fresh, this new level of responsibility, as opposed to, okay, I've got to protect my family, my adult friends, but
also personal stakes. Yeah. Like, I mean, you have a kid, that's literally your heart hanging out of your body. Yeah. And so, Batman has made a career of avoiding any type of actual relationship. But here we have Pedro Pascal again in a movie. But yeah, first and foremost, he's a father.
Yeah.
And then everything else is secondary.
Yeah. And that fuels the decisions they make. Because you can make some very rational decisions when you don't have the personal stakes in it.
Yep. One criticism that I couldn't believe was irritating me as on level with your criticism about Aquaman speaking underwater. When Reed Richards stretches in the 2010 movies and this one, his clothes do as well. Yeah. And at least in Josh Trank's movie, that's the reason why they're wearing their uniforms. Yep. And so Reed Richards has almost like a uniform that's folded up. So when he stretches, the uniform stretches. Johnny Storm in the 2010 movies, his power is to burst into flame. He would incinerate whatever he's wearing. except for his suit, which is specifically made for him to wear to be Flame Boy. Whereas in this one, he's flaming on, wearing whatever he's got on, and it's flame retardant. Yeah. And the same with Sue Richards, but she can now obviously create invisible force fields, which I would think in some sort of science fiction reality can cloak whatever she's got on or whatever she projects it into. Which is weird because in the 2010s movie, Jessica Alba had to take her clothes off to turn invisible, and that was such a sexist thing to do even back then. Yeah. So whatever. But I just found myself going, you went to so much trouble to have such a reality in this world, they forgot about the suits.
I was actually waiting for them to mention it as well because
why else would you have to wear a suit?
Yeah, in the comic books, it's called unstable molecules that they build these clothes out of so that for each of the Fantastic Four, it reacts to what they do. So it does stretch when Reed stretches. It does become flame retardant when Human Torch bursts into flames. And I was just waiting for them to drop that line in there just to explain, this is why Stretchy Boy's clothes stretch and, all this sort of stuff. But they just didn't touch on it at all.
No.
This is just something.
And if that's true then why wear the uniforms?
Yeah. Yeah, anyway. Because to be fair, they are in a world where they speak about a number of supervillains. So I think the superhero thing, or at the very least the adventuring thing, the adventuring family thing, has been happening for the last 4 years in that world. That they've got enough named and familiar villains that there is the good versus evil thing. It's not like the very first time when they walk out of the spaceship and they've got superhero costumes. So again, not that it was explained or anything, but it's a bit of a tightrope to walk, isn't it?
I think it is. So, Tim, how many pacifiers out of 5 are you going to give the Fantastic Four First Steps?
Well, I found I genuinely wanted to give it a Fantastic Four. Again, not the perfect film, but it did its job. It entertained me. I had a great time watching it. Yeah, it just loses 1 star because it wasn't perfect. There were still some things I was thinking about, things that I would have brought to the story that I think would have made it better. But as far as what they brought, it did well. And I don't have a lot of major criticisms for it.
No, I think this was very strong, very sound. It had to do a lot of gear shifting to finally reposition the Fantastic Four in the MCU. And we're not even there yet. We're in a different universe still. And so they're still gearing towards getting this family into the MCU prime. Very enjoyable, but there were a couple of things I thought, that was a shame that this didn't happen, that didn't happen. Yeah. Silver Surfer just disappears out of the movie until she doesn't. Yeah. Those sorts of things. And it got close to being a little bit overstuffed because we've got fantastic cameos of different villains along the way, which I thought, make a movie about that, Mole Man, and all these other things. But then what we got was a remake of Rise of the Silver Surfer. But like with Soups, this is a great first brick, first step leading forward with this set of characters. So a strong 3 out of 5 pacifiers for me.
I would like to just add real quick. It was awesome to see them fight Galactus and the Silver Surfer with their minds instead of just another physical punch fest where they had to figure out the science behind it, and if we can't do this, we're going to have to do this. And it still went through the whole hero's journey of all is lost, trial and error. We got a plan, let's science it and figure it out. Oh, it failed. Okay, now we've got to science it and figure it out. That was a lot of fun to watch because as much as we love Hulk, Batman, Captain America just punching evil in its stupid neck, it was cool to see people trying to figure it all out cerebrally.
And working together as a family.
Yeah.
And that's about it from us at the Movie Club. Thank you very much for joining us once again. Make sure you tune in the same time and channel next week. But in the meantime, jump on to www.themovieclub.net for our past podcasts and written reviews. There you find links to our Facebook page, Twitter, Spotify, and YouTube page. So make sure you like, subscribe, and follow us there. See you next week.